You're listening to the Back Porch Talk podcast. Danny and Jason had many discussions and debates on the back porch while making pivotal investment moves with assets. That's right, with trading cards. They welcome you to the back porch and right into those discussions about current sports news with a fresh and unique twist. So come on and join us. Welcome to the Back Porch Talk podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason.
Your co-host, Danny.
Fans, we have a full show for you today. Let me just tell you, March Madness is madness. And then we have Major League Baseball opening up, a little bit about the NBA, winding down the regular season. But first, Danny, right into March Madness. And oh boy, the women's March Madness, in my opinion, has been a little bit better than the men's. I know the names more so in women's basketball than I do in men's basketball at this point in time. And it's just been really interesting, really intriguing, because I think with women's basketball, we're all wanting some of the rematches, and we're hoping some of the rematches take place. And these rematches take place in the most critical times. And I'm talking about the LSUs, the Iowas, the South Carolinas, the LSUs. This is going to be really interesting to see how the Sweet 16 shapes up. I'm really wondering if the transfer portal in men's basketball, if the opportunities, the plethora of opportunities now that the men's basketball team side has in terms of going into, whether it's the G League or whether it's to different academies or coupled with the transfer portals, I'm wondering if it's starting to kind of water down that of March Madness in terms of the number. Because, quite frankly, I didn't even fill out a bracket this year. I didn't fill out a bracket this year because I didn't want to give up the money. Because I knew that the first day, I mean, what happens the first day? Your bracket is busted already.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, never fails. Something happens, and I remember I used to go in and pick a team based upon the preview, because I'm like, oh, man, this is hard to decide because I know this player is on this team and that player is on that team. Let me look at the preview, see what the preview says over the past 5, 6, 7, 8 games. How has the team been doing? What does the defensive ranking look like? I typically look at the rebounding and also the turnovers. I look at that. I didn't do none of that this year, Danny, because I don't know any of the players. I knew my bracket was going to be busted the first day, and which could be a fun thing. But at the same token, I just didn't have no vested interest. I do want to see, obviously, the likes of Wisconsin, Marquette, the local Wisconsin teams. I do want to see them do well. And Marquette did prevail, then they moved on to Sweet 16. But other than that, Danny, I just didn't have any vested interest. Women's basketball, at least I know some of the players. I've heard the names. And I want to see some of the rematches. And the storylines are great, actually. I think that's what the women's basketball side now produces, better storylines, and it engages you more. What say you, Danny, about March Madness?
This March Madness, as opposed to last year, is more chalky. From the men's side, on the women's side, too, the only major team that was upset was Ohio State as a 2 seed. But it's still shaping up for Iowa to run into LSU, even though LSU looked a little shaky on Sunday against Middle Tennessee, and then they got it together in the third quarter. I think that Kim Mulkey, that story that may be coming on in the Washington Post, they just look flat. And then all of a sudden they kind of pulled it together and got it going. And then you have USC, who may run into UConn. South Carolina, they may run into Notre Dame, so the 1 and 2 seeds are strong. Stanford and Texas. So it's shaping up on the women's side to be really good ball.
Mm-hmm.
if everyone prevails. Like I said, there's been a couple, like Iowa even last night, they didn't score but like a bucket in the fourth quarter. They still pulled it out against West Virginia, but it was nip and tuck for a little bit because it was like, oh man, they might lose. But they pulled it out, and that's shaping up to be a great Sweet 16. And then on the men's side, you were just talking about the metrics, right? And teams coming in, where they're either hot or cold. Clemson is a team that came in limping in, and they made it to the Sweet 16. There have been some good games over the weekend. The Creighton Oregon game was an double overtime. You had Houston, Texas A&M on Sunday night, where Houston almost
And
and
Houston was
they had 4 players foul out, and Texas A&M had their shot, even though they're down 10 with like a minute 17, wherever that was in the regulation. The Oakland game, NC State. So there's been some like great games, but like you said, it's the powerhouses and the names from the women's side that overtaking the guys a little bit from that standpoint. But as we get into this, all the top seeds on the men's side are playing and still alive. Kentucky's one of the major upsets so far. So looking forward to the Sweet 16s on both sides of the brackets. And yeah, I'm just hoping for those close games, man, because that's what you're looking for. They're competitive.
And on the men's side, we do have this Sweet 16. We have the likes of the Thursday night games: Clemson against Arizona, San Diego State against UConn, Alabama against North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a good one. This Illinois, Iowa State, and you got to watch out for Iowa State, man.
Mm-hmm.
I think my antennas were raised when Iowa State beat Houston, and that was a beat down. And to me, out of the number one seeds, Houston seems to be a little bit shaky, or a little bit more suspect to take a fall here. We'll see. And then the Friday games, man, you have the likes of North Carolina State against Marquette. That's going to be an interesting game. North Carolina State has the big man down low. I forgot his name. Just
Burns. DJ Burns.
Hey, Marquette better watch out. This Gonzaga against Purdue, that's going to be an intriguing matchup. Mm-hmm. Edie is, 7'4", huge, and oh my gosh, I don't think nobody can stop him. This Duke against Houston, we'll see. That's going to be, that's going to be a game for you, man. That's going to be a game. And then Creighton against Tennessee. So some great matchups, man. But got to give a shout out to the women. Mm-hmm. Friday's games: Oregon State, Notre Dame, Indiana against South Carolina, North Carolina State against Stanford, Gonzaga against Texas. That's Friday. Your Saturday games would consist of that LSU UCLA matchup. Whew. Colorado and Iowa, Baylor, USC, Duke, and UConn. Man, they got some good games on this weekend, Danny. So y'all stay tuned. This is going to be interesting. Mm-hmm. And now, Danny, on to Major League Baseball, where we're upon a new season here. And ironically enough, I have to say that the new season, before it had even really started, even though Dodgers played, there's been some news regarding gambling. And Ohtani has been in this, it's been in the news where his interpreter has created some gambling debt. Ohtani helped him out with approximately $4.5 million in the gambling debt, but that turned into the interpreter being fired and an investigation by Major League Baseball and by the feds actually being put on Ohtani. This has been, on the feds been with the interpreter, Major League Baseball with Ohtani. And so this has been just really interesting, Danny, in that we haven't seen anything like this before. Mm-hmm. Not with an interpreter.
Yep.
And we wonder just how much of an impact this will have on the LA Dodgers, who are actually favored to win the World Series. Their squad is wicked. You just say that, man. Their squad is wicked, and so it'll be something else if they didn't make it to the World Series. I will go see the Dodgers. I want to see this team live
Mm-hmm.
in a living color. So we'll see where this investigation lies. But what say you, Danny, about Major League Baseball opening up and this Ohtani story?
The Ohtani story, the allegations, he came out yesterday and had a press conference on this. And one of the things I was thinking about with this whole thing is, sounds like the interpreters had a sketchy past. So who was vetting this dude to make sure he was on the up and up with all the stuff that's being alleged? So that's where something that doesn't smell right, or someone just wasn't paying attention, because it sounds like this interpreter's been with a couple different organizations besides now the Dodgers with Ohtani. From the Dodgers standpoint, they want to get rectified quickly, because you don't want this cloud hanging over you all season. And they've invested how much money into this lineup, because this World Series is a bust. If they don't win, that's the that has to be the expectation for this team. If they don't win, and you don't want it to be because of this, right? So that's where hopefully they can get to some resolution quickly for the sake of all parties involved. But it's just something something ain't passing the smell test with me, at least, on these allegations and what may be going on here in this guy in particular. As far as Major League Baseball, that's opening up. They had the games last week, that still is weird to me when they do that. Major League, It's like, just keep it all together, because it's disjointed. And the games are at like 5 a.m. local time, 4 a.m, whatever it is, because I think they are in Korea, South Korea. So it's like, why do that? Just make it an exhibition or something like that, and just make the whole opening day, because it's just strange. But the Brewers, they open up at New York with the Mets, and then they actually open at home with the Twins next week. So I'm looking forward to it, and I don't know what the Brewers are going to be, because they've lost a lot of talent, but we'll see. And they have a new manager.
I am thankful that finally the Brewers are opening up against somebody else other than the Cubs. Got tired of opening up against the Cubs. Let's change it up, man. Golly.
Yep.
So thank you for changing it up, Major League Baseball, for the Brewers. This is going to be interesting to see how the Brewers really shake out, man. Like you said, new manager, lost a lot of talent. We gonna see, man. Just as the issues are happening with the Dodgers here with Ohtani's story, I'm hoping that the Brewers take advantage of any ill will the Dodgers way, because we need every victory we can get. Because I just don't know what the Brewers going to do here, man. I don't know, man. It's to a point where I'm just wanting to see a breakthrough for the Brewers to get beyond the first round, or get beyond, the first 3 games in the playoffs. I'm thankful to make the playoffs, first of all. Come on, Brewer organization. And come on, the development around Miller Park. What is it? What is it now?
Oh, American Family.
Come on, man. I'm going back to Miller Park. Come on, man. Let's get some development going around the park, man. It's now becoming a commonplace for development to happen around Major League Baseball stadiums.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something to be said there, to have year-round activity, not even at baseball stadiums, but it's happening even in the football stadiums, and where they're building, and even NBA arenas.
Yep.
They're building mixed-use facilities, so that way there could be some money generated throughout the course of the year, and just not through a baseball season or through a basketball season, whatever the case may be. So I think the Brewers need to get with the times. I know it's not my money, but if I had the money, I sure would be going ahead and trying to make some more money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way they make some more money and to generate some buzz around uh, your respective arenas and parks and stadiums. So just my 2 cents.
And that the blueprints here, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
They got the Packers and the Bucks.
There you
You
go.
have you have it sitting right there. It's the blueprint on what to do, and especially the Bucks being right downtown.
Come on, man.
Why not tap into them? Figure out, but we already know with the ownership group here, I think it's time for them to move on. And I think that then that may come to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
Antanasio is still here. I just don't see it, but you never know.
You never know. You never know. Danny, just a quick pivot here on the next story, and that is that of Formula One, real quickly. Formula One had their Grand Prix in Australia this past weekend. And let me just say that this was an interesting race. Finally, somebody other than Max Verstappen won. And that's because Max's car, right rear brake, caught on fire, and next thing you know, some other stuff caught on fire, and he had to do a do not finish for this particular race. And so I initially thought at that point in time, this may be an opportunity for finally Sir Lewis Hamilton to kind of inch up there a little bit, get some points, whatever the case may be. But later in the race, his engine failed.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to do not finish. And so I thought, well, maybe Mercedes can just still get some points with George Russell. What happens on the last lap? George Russell's car gets put into the wall. So a double do not finish for Mercedes.
Yeah.
But a win for Ferrari. And I'm going to say this. I think there's something to be said here. I think Ferrari is going to compete very well this year against Red Bull.
Mm-hmm.
They have been competing prior to this Australian Grand Prix,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to compete thereafter. This is the worst position that Sir Lewis Hamilton has been in his career to start off with. We're going to see how things end up in his Mercedes career. But in looking at the Mercedes car, it is nowhere near where Ferrari is, where Red Bull is right now, and for that matter, even McLaren Mercedes is. So this is going to be an uphill battle for Mercedes. I'm curious as to where Sir Lewis Hamilton and, for that matter, George Russell, and for the Constructors' Cup, where Mercedes actually ends up. But it was good to finally see somebody other than Max Verstappen win. And I think Ferrari is going to compete. Danny, what say you about Formula One?
I'm like, man, Mercedes must be have a hex on them after. I'm like, Verstappen's done. Here you go. And like you said, man, they both DNF'd, did not finish, and it's just unfortunate. Ferrari and McLaren took 1, 2, 3, 4. So it was something to be said there that they were able to take advantage of this, because that's a big, with Ferrari going 1 and 2, that's huge, man.
Mm-hmm.
That gives them confidence. Not to say this is going to happen for Verstappen every time or anything like that, but what we talked about in the past, you got to take advantage of opportunities. Ferrari did, Mercedes cars did not. And so this is one of those things where do they go? Now they're talk about being at the bottom. You only can go up. You would think.
Yeah.
We're just going to have to keep an eye on them, man, and see how this goes. You just hope that for Sir Lewis Hamilton's sake, that he's able to get back, bounce back after this whole incident and, do some things in the next race. But it was like, I just shook my head, man. we'll see what happens next race, and we'll see if Ferrari can hold on to that top spot.
And now, Danny, right on to NBA, down to the stretch run here where we're wrapping up the regular season. And let me just say this. I watched the Milwaukee Bucks against OKC. I was really interested in seeing how the Milwaukee Bucks would compete. And competed, they did. I have to say the defense was extraordinary. It was good to see Dame actually play some defense. And even if the defender went by him, he still played defense, and where he had a lot of active hands. And I think that's what we'll see in the playoffs with the Milwaukee Bucks, and especially with Dame. And I would say this too. I think it was good seeing Beauchamp on the bench. Mm-hmm. And he did get some PT because of the margin of victory there. But I just don't understand. I still understand Doc not playing Jackson and Beauchamp. They're both 6'6", 6'7", respectively. I think there are some long bodies there that you can put on the wing just to at least have more of a defensive young presence, young legs. Mm-hmm. But I would say initially looking at that game, I immediately thought a very young team in OKC versus an older team in the Milwaukee Bucks, and I saw that. The Milwaukee Bucks actually picked up their game a little bit in the latter half of the first quarter. But I think this is something to be said here. I think now the Bucks are starting to kind of pull it together. We'll see against the Lakers tonight. LeBron James is slated not to play.
Yep.
So we'll see. But I'm really interested to see how this goes. The Lakers need this victory. Bucks not as much because it seems like we're locked in. Well, we still are defending against the Cleveland Cavaliers for the number 2 seed. So yeah. I can see us play hard for chemistry purposes. But the Lakers actually need this game. I'll say this on another front. I think Golden State need to watch out for the Houston Rockets. Houston Rockets has been on a tear. They're young and hungry. And I know Draymond said he's not worried about the Rockets. You better worry about the Rockets because this could end y'all legacy. Yep. Quite frankly, if y'all don't make it into the playoffs. And even make it out of the play-in tournament. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're going to get out of the play-in tournament in the next week or so, purely because of where they are. But in that week or so, they do have a game against the Houston Rockets. So this is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out in the Western Conference. It's going to be a great playoffs. Danny, what say you about the NBA?
Yeah, Jason, on that Bucks game, if you remember a couple weeks ago, the Bucks played the Lakers, and the Lakers did not have LeBron either. And that's when D'Angelo Russell went off for 40. So I'm curious. That's when D'Lo usually plays well, is when LeBron is not in the lineup. Mm-hmm. If you remember that game, that's where the Bucks actually came back, took the lead by, I think, like 4 or 6 in the last couple minutes, and then D'Lo just went off. I'm looking forward to the game, actually. And on the East side, like talking about playoffs, it's pretty much, the Hawks are sitting in, I'm looking at the 10th spot right now, and they're almost 6 games up on the net. So the East is pretty much locked in. It's the West, like you mentioned, where the Rockets are a half game back of the Warriors. That's one of those games where I can see Draymond and Dylan Brooks, because they're the enforcers where some stuff could jump off. And the Warriors actually, if they're in the East, they'll be locked into the playoffs because they're 2 games above 500, not in the West. And right now, that West, if it stays as it is for the play-in tournament with the Mavericks, Suns, Lakers, Warriors, the NBA has something there. They'll get some eyes on that because those are 4 teams that could easily be in the top 4 if they were playing at their full capabilities, but they're not. So I'm looking forward to this because we have about 10, 11 games left and the playoffs start. We'll see how that Bucks-Lakers game goes tonight.
Thank you for joining us at Back Porch Talk Podcast. You can also join us on Twitter by tweeting us at @back_podcast. For more information, you can go to our website, which is backporchtalkpodcast.com. You can also email us at backporchtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining us, and remember that there's enough hate in the world, so go ahead and spread a little love.